I found that most people have pretty beat up knees from training years, and as a result, the leg extension as the very first thing isn't always the most comfortable thing, but it's really important to only do it on days that you feel good, okay? Because you do not want to take those risks just for the sake of it, because if you're getting feedback that doesn't give you the green light and you do it and you get injured, you then can't lift. So it's really, really stupid. So even if you're training with a training partner and your warm-ups are slightly different to them, warm up how you need to warm up, and they'll warm up how they need to warm up. Do yes! Do yes!
Se você deseja consultoria de qualidade, vem para o time Mais.
What is up, guys? Welcome to episode 2 of the training session edition. I am training legs today, and this is part of a push-pull leg split. So the volume that I'm working at for this session is reflective of that setup. Now, for those of you that haven't watched the videos so far, please go back, watch them, and understand how the volume will vary depending on the split choice that you're using, because the split choice you're using will have different frequencies, and then your volume will adjust based on your frequency. So if you haven't watched any of the content, watch the first 2 videos. I advise, the videos are really interlinked as a series. And so if you watch them from the start to the finish, you're going to understand the things I'm talking about way more. Like, there's going to be, hopefully, no missing things as to what I'm trying to cover. If you just jump into one video, it's probably going to leave you with a lot of questions that I promise you are answered in all of the previous videos that we've done. It's been very much designed in a way to string things together and introduce more concepts and ideas as we've gone. Just because obviously I can't overload you with everything at once, because this has been like 22 years of training knowledge that I've developed that I'm then putting together and giving to you. And I talk about that a lot in the last push-pull legs video as a whole that I put up. So, legs today. I like to start my leg sessions with a hamstring curl. That's just my preference. That's not an absolute must whatsoever. But I find that getting my hamstrings warm, getting my knees warm, and doing that prior to my compound movements generally feels good. It's one of the things actually that I learned from John Meadows, and he was a big advocate of that. And I really, for those of you that train your legs hard and you're strong on your compound movements, you'll know that doing that leg work, that hamstring curl work prior to them feels good. Yes, you could do the leg extension before, but I found that most people have pretty beat up knees from training years, and as a result, the leg extension as the very first thing isn't always the most comfortable thing. It might be for you, and that again is fine. There is huge variability when it comes to the layout of these sessions, and I'm going to post on my Instagram lots of different example layouts for you to give you the options available to you, so then you can then try them and come to what you think feels the best for you, because we're all very different. So for some of you, you might just want to bash out your compound movements first, because that again feels the best. And there's certainly periods where I've done that, where my body's been feeling great and I've been excited to come in here, and I think, do you know what, the very first thing I want to do is just attack my compound movement, because that's how I feel. And if that's how you feel, great, have at it. But for me today, and for the large majority of my leg training, I'm a little bit tired, because I'm always a little bit tired. My body's a little bit beat up, and I know that if I do my hamstring curls first, by the time I finish my hamstring curls, I'm then pretty much ready to do whatever else I've got to do for the rest of the session. So I'm going to do single leg standing hamstring curl. I'm going to get warm in my usual fashion. I'm going to work my way down through the reps as I do more weight, and then I'm going to do 2 work sets here. And with the rep ranges for these are not set in stone in the sense of a load and a back set, because when I'm warming up, some days it might feel great, and when that happens, yeah, I'll probably go heavier on my first set. But equally, some days it might not, and I won't necessarily do my heavy set first. And this is where, again, in one of the previous videos, the upper low video, I said that the idea of the load and the back off set isn't set in stone, because it might be what's essentially a back offset first, that lighter weight first. But as always to failure. So I'm going to warm up, I'm going to see how things feel, and I'm going to decide which rep range I'm going to work in. But regardless, I know, obviously right now I'm a lot weaker than I was at peak strength because it's not my goal anymore. But when I was at peak strength, I knew what my high rep numbers were to progress, and I knew what my heavy numbers were to progress. So regardless of which one I chose, I'm still looking to progress my lift. And that's also an important thing to note, guys. So as a small aside, guys, for those of you that might watch this, that do jiu-jitsu, from doing jiu-jitsu, I have worked out, because I didn't want to put some kind of any comments about strength work and jiu-jitsu until I'd done enough jiu-jitsu and put in enough rolls against people and against good people as well to come to any kind of ideas of what you do and don't need to do for strength training. One thing that I'm absolutely sure of is that if you have really, really fucking strong hamstrings, it's helpful. It's really helpful. Like, you can get yourself out, and obviously strong glutes as well. Having strong glutes to be able to powerfully hip escape is super important, but strong hamstrings as well. You can do a lot with super strong hammies. Like, it makes it a very big difference, and you're going to be a much bigger pain in the arse in certain situations if your hamstrings are really strong. So focus on getting them super strong. So just like as a continuation from that last thing, like I still haven't put out any like absolute ideas on my thoughts to strength training and jiu-jitsu, because I'm still not there yet with my ideas as a whole. Like I said, I've been lifting weights for 22 years. I understand lifting weights inside and out. I understand getting strong and building muscle inside and out. But so much so, and understanding that it's so nuanced that it takes time to come to kind of some ideas when they're sport specific. You can't just, I don't believe, immediately say, well, you should do this. Like, I didn't want to put anything out there until I'm a lot further along the line with things, and actually I'm doing some half decent jiu-jitsu, and then can say positively, yeah, this is probably going to be a better way to approach things. I'm just not there with it yet, and I refuse to put out ideas that I can't fully stand behind. Like, in all the years of putting out content, my approaches and my ideas have never changed, ever. Like, I've never had to backtrack. Have I ever had to backtrack on a training idea? No, never. I can't think of a single thing. Yes, definitely some drug stuff, and of course some nutrition stuff, because I've learned more. There's aspects of things that I've backtracked in many ways, but never anything on training. And I think it's because I think about training more than anything else, way more. So that's why I'm not there with it. But I know that you guys are asking for content on it, and obviously I have some ideas that I'm happy to share, but nothing conclusive yet. But it will come. Give me a bit more time to be really thinking and working some things out. And I learn a lot from Corinne too. So, like, Corinne's on her first comp, and she did fantastically well. She's got her second comp coming up. Once Corinne has 10 competitions under her belt, 20 competitions under her belt, which is only going to take her 6 months to do 20 comps. And once she's competed internationally, like Europeans and Worlds, and against some of the best, which again will only be 6 months' time, I can then formulate ideas really, really fast once that happens, because I then am honing in on how subjectively and emotionally detached, how to make someone else that I'm seeing improve get better as quick as I can help them. I find that, for me, the biggest learning experience, and that's when I know I'm about to share stuff even more. Is Corinne's basically the guinea pig, and then we work out how to do things the most efficient way. We can measure it in the rate of progress, and then we can come to some ideas. And that's what we did when we were bodybuilding, basically. It worked really well. So yeah, same thing's coming at you with jiu-jitsu soon. So that's warm-up done. As you saw, I just did 1 rep on my last warm-up. Now, from a resistance profile perspective, this piece in particular is very hard to get short. Very. Again, that's why I'm starting with it, because I'm only going to have that oomph to get that fully shortened position. And to be honest, when I actually go heavy on this, I struggle actually to even get it fully short. I get it as short as I can. So some of these reps might look like they're a little bit off of full contraction, and that's because as well, when you're in the standing position, it doesn't quite look like you're hitting full contraction unless you kind of leant forward and then you're able to get that slight further range of motion. I'm getting it to a point that I'm happy with it feels good. So if that range looks a little short, just understand that when you do this, try to find something that feels good for you. So warming up, that felt good. So I'm going to do like a 5 repper first as my first set, and then I'll come down. Like if that didn't feel okay, I'd start a bit lighter as my first set, and then I'd do a heavier one second. But I'm happy with that. That feels okay. Now in terms of volume, like I said, just going to be 2 sets here. But if I do the first set and it feels fucking great, then that's where I'll then do another set that's slightly heavier again. And for those of you that have watched my content before, you'll hear that I use that phrase, when it's there, take it. In the sense that if it's safe to do something even heavier again, even if it's only a double and a treble, if it's safe, I like to take it, because the more I can expose myself to something that's even heavier, it gets me even used to that 5 rep set that I'm going to start with, and then before I know it, that 5 rep set starts to feel light, and all of a sudden, like when I'm creeping up the load, like I'm able to go 5 reps to 6 reps and also make that slight bump in load increase by adding a biscuit. And that exposure to something even heavier allows you to do that faster, but it's really important to only do it on days that you feel good, okay? Because you do not want to take those risks just for the sake of it, because if you're getting feedback that doesn't give you the green light and you do it and you get injured, you then can't lift. So it's really, really stupid. So only ever doing those on days where things feel amazing is wise. That last rep, I know that I didn't get short. That one I could feel was considerably less than the others, but that's fine. That was full failure in that I couldn't complete the rep. That set felt great, so I'm going to go up, and I'm just going to shoot for 2 reps on this one, which I don't hugely advise a lot of the time to do 2 rep hamstring curls, but for me, I know that it's safe for me to do that. I do that a lot. I've never got hurt doing it, and also my goal at the moment is to have a really freaky strong leg curl, like really strong, and be able to just produce as much force in that curl position as possible. Again, that second one was like near impossible to get short. Third set, I've now backed back off. So I did like a 5 or a 6 repper, then a 2 repper, and I've come back down to what will be like a 10 to 12 rep. And then for a push-pull leg layout split, I'm happy for those 3 rep range parameters. For those of you that are solely focused on building muscle, if you do the slightly heavier set, maybe only do as a 3. But like I said, that set is not essential whatsoever. Focusing on that initial 6 to 10 and then like 12 to 20 is a perfectly fine approach to things. And then on the days that feel good, on exercises that you feel safe, if you want to have a crack at a heavy treble, then go for it. So guys, hamstring curls done. For my quad compound at the moment, I like to do dead stop leg presses. I like to take the range fairly deep at the moment, control the eccentric well, dead stop in the bottom, and then power back out. This has been a really safe way for me to actually lift really heavy in terms of the rep range on the leg press, because it, like I said in the kind of the previous video, and I said on the hamstring curl, that for me right now my goal is absolute strength, just to try to be as strong for what I'm doing as possible. So with this, don't go into the heavy rep ranges like I am. Stick in the rep ranges that are the most suitable for you. So it's going to get warm. With this, you'll see that I don't waste any energy warming up. My warm-ups on these are probably lower than what most people would need to do. Make sure that you're ready for your work set. Don't be, so even if you're training with a training partner and your warm-ups are slightly different to them, warm up how you need to warm up, and they'll warm up how they need to warm up. So like for me, on that first set, I think I only did like a couple reps, like 4 reps, and the last one, I think it was only 1 rep. So it may have only been 2 reps and 1 rep. It's really low. Like for this again, it'll just be 1 rep. That's all I need to do to get warm. Like once I've done my first piece, I don't need to waste energy. That's only ever bit me once when it comes to injury. And you will avoid injury a lot more so by doing what's essentially feeder sets, but then you'll take away dramatically from your working sets. And to create the most amount of mechanical tension, we need to be taking weights to absolute failure with the maximum amount of load to recruit the maximum amount of muscle fibers. Okay. So guys, this is going to be a 5 rep set. I've just been biscuiting my progressions to just like 0.5 jumps, just because this is right at the upper end. And for me now, like, I had a huge drop off in strength, and then now I'm trying to claw some progressions back again. But like, I'm on legit TRT. Like I said in my previous video, I don't even take my 125 test a week. It gets taken every 10 days because I don't do my shots when I should, because I don't like doing them anymore. And then I'm doing martial arts every single day. So recovery for me to lift weights is hard. And also, like, I'm a lot more fatigued coming into sessions because of the amount of martial arts that we're doing. So like, these sessions are very hard to be as up for it as I previously was, because they don't serve the same purpose anymore. But nonetheless, on these heavy sets where I want to take from it what I want, I'm still going to get fucking up for them, because that's the only way I know how to lift weights. I'm not as strong as James, so for me to lift weights that are half decent, I have to really fucking give it some in my head. So. Fuck you! So guys, for this set, I'm going up again. Please be super careful in the rep ranges you work in, please. Like a 3 rep leg press, I don't have anyone I've ever coached do that. Okay, I know for me it's okay. Like, obviously I don't know, there's certainly an element of risk. Part of me slightly enjoys that risk as well. It's the way I've always trained. I walk on that side of risk. But at the moment with the dead stop, this feels okay for me. And it's the safest way for me to do extremely heavy compound loading. This is actually safer for me than a 3 rep squat, surprisingly. Because with that I pick up little quad injuries, and my goal is absolute maximal peak strength. We will have different goals. Your goal will not be the same as mine at the moment. Like, the next thing that I compete in is a jiu-jitsu competition. For that, I want to be as strong as I possibly can be. So that's why I'm lifting like I am. So, work in the rep ranges that are safe for you, please. For those of you that are on YouTube, you will not be used to my music choices yet, and I'm probably not going to expose you to them just yet. Can you hear it?
Yeah, don't explain this one. It's not worth it. It's not worth it.
Corey was just like, don't tell them what that is.
Some things are best left unsaid.
Oh shit, turn it off. One thing I can be sure of, no one would ever in a million years guess what song it is. Unless you happen to be in Murrayfield in February.
Or your Hamish Watson.
Or your Hamish Watson.
That's one clue.
Yes! Do yes! Do yes! Do! Fuck yeah! Boom! So guys, again, real low energy output on my warm-ups. There was just 1 rep on 6 plates, 1 rep on 7 plates, and I'm going to work on 8 plates. I'm not looking to waste energy because my knees are warm. Everything's warm. I've done hamstring curls, I've done leg presses. Like, I don't need to waste tons of energy on this. The only time where you may do is if you still have iffy knees, and then you might need to get some more blood into them with the leg extension. For me at the moment, my knees are okay, and they're staying okay, touch wood. So, for me, they're alright. First working set for this on me, guys. For this with me, guys. I don't, on the first one, go heavy. So, like on the hamstring curl, it was a 6 to 10 or a 5 to 10, and the same for my leg press compounds. For this one, even though the goal is absolute strength, I find that my knees will get beat up if I start heavy. So on the first set, I shoot for like 8 to 10. This will probably be about 8. And then if that feels good, I can go up, but I have to kind of listen to my knees in the moment. But I have numbers in terms of, so I have an 8 plate number, I have a 9 plate number, I have a 10 plate number. And you'll see at the moment there's a biscuit on top of the 8 plates. So I'm gonna try to progress that based on what I feel good. But then I also have a 7 plate number and a 6 plate number, and I could come down. And I also, the important thing is that I'll compare session to session. So if I'll always have numbers where like the first set might be 8 and then the second set might be 10 plates. Then I'm always gonna try to focus on the 10 plate when it falls at the second session, the second set. So I'm not then going to put the 10 plate set third and compare it to the progressions of when it was second set. So again, that's super logical, but I know to maybe guys that are new to training that you might not think about that. Like eventually you would, because eventually you'd realize, oh, why am I not progressing this set? Oh yeah, because previously I did the third set, or previously I did the second set, and now I'm doing it third. But eventually you would fall on that idea, but if you aren't initially, then compare like for like sets. So second set, guys. So like I said, my knees actually felt great on that first set. I got 10 reps. So I'm gonna go up for this second set. This is gonna be super low on the reps. And I'll only do this on the days that my knees feel really happy. So if you have bulletproof knees, again, have at those lower reps if you want them. Like 4s and 5s, they're gonna have great knock-ons to how your 10s feel. But for me, I struggle to string together consecutive sessions where my knees are happy, which isn't a problem because then I just work in a different rep range and then I take it when it's there, when it gives it to me I take it. Today's one of those days, so I'm not going to miss the opportunity to take the loading. This is the first set of the day where we're going to make most of the adjustable resistance profile. So with that dead stop leg press, as you can imagine, that really trained the lengthened position because I went deep and I dead stop down there. It really didn't tax the short position because when I hit full lockout, the overload on the muscle at that point is minimal. So that's why when I get on the leg press, I start with bottom peg as it really overloads the short. It's really hard to get short. And then from there, I adjust the resistance profile as I go down. So on days where my recovery feels fantastic, I'll do more like systemically in terms of the fatigue I'm carrying through the week. And week to week, I'll do more quad compound work. Today, I feel pretty tired. I did 2 hard sessions yesterday, and then the same again today. So when I know that I've got training again tonight, and tonight's a hard sparring session, which sounds silly, but I have new goals, and that's just what that is. So in this session here, I'm going to tick off what I need to do for my current goals. So I advise you to focus on the same. That your volume requirements are a reflection of your recovery status at the time, and then also your setup. So don't be looking to do more work than what you can recover from. That's going to hold you back dramatically. Because I know that if I pushed with more and more and more work on some of the real hard demanding sets, the new really difficult sets, then I'm going to create too much fatigue to get through all the training sessions that I need to do in the week. And that's important. And when you relate that to a bodybuilding perspective, if you bury yourself in any one session, you're not going to string together progressions across a 6-month period. We're mid-peg loaded now, which means that the resistance isn't quite as heavy at the shortened position, because I'm not going to be able to get it short now, but the loading is more consistent through the full range of motion. So this is the peg I like to use once I have done my bottom peg. So with different machines, I utilize different pegs. So with press machines and pull machines that are prime, I never use the bottom peg at all. I think it's entirely obsolete. I think it's a useless peg. Whereas with the hamstring curls, I use a little more, so not solely bottom peg, but some goes on there. And then with the leg extension, that's where I feel like it has a lot of use. Again, try different setups and see what you feel, but for me, that's the way that I like to use machines. So I said at the beginning of the leg extension setup that I base it on how my knees feel. For those of you that do have issues with your knees that flare up sometimes, and you do have an adjustable resistance profile machine, starting on the bottom peg will get your knees warmer much better, because there's less loading in the stretch position, which is where you're going to find you're going to aggravate things the most for the large majority of you. That might not be all of you, but the majority of you. So then obviously I did 2 sets in that overloaded shortened position, and then was able to move to the mid peg. I can never start on the mid peg. So that was an 8 rep set, whatever it was on that last one. I could never do 5 plates first set on the leg extension on a mid peg. Even if it's an 8 rep set, I can't do it. That will flare my knees instantly. Even if I do a 12 rep set, mid peg to start, that will cause me a knee issue that will then develop into tendonitis quite quickly. So I've learned that through trial and error. For those of you that followed my stuff before I had this adjustable resistance profile, I used to band the leg extension. So I'd have very little pin resistance. I'd have loads of band resistance that then kicked in at about 1/3 of the way in, and then obviously peaked at shortened. That replicates the same situation. And then what I would do is, as I would go through the sets, I would remove the band tension, but increase the amount of peg weight. And that's the exact same situation as adjusting the resistance profile. There's videos of that on my Instagram, so you can check that. Or if you're on the members site, come back and look at some of the older content on there, and you'll see how to set that up efficiently. 4 sets wrapped up on the leg extension. I was able to do 4 sets because of the adjustable resistance profile. So if I didn't have that option to adjust the resistance profile, I would have only been able to do 2 sets, kind of how like a previous setup was when I was limited on the kit that we had. Because I knew then that you'd exhausted that resistance profile that you're working in. Whereas when you have the adjustable ones, you can accumulate more sets on them. You don't have to keep jumping from machine to machine, which is then a really efficient way to train because it just saves so much time because you have less setup. So because like when you look at a training session as a whole, I don't look at a training session thinking, okay, I can only do 2 sets here, I can only do 2 sets here. My thinking is that I have 12 or 14 sets, for example, to use in the session as a whole, and then I'll use those appropriately on pieces of kit that allow me to train in resistance profiles that are ideal for that part of the session. So obviously, like we know that when we train, we can overload things in the shortened position at the start and lengthened positions at the end. So if you don't have a variety of kit, you might have to change between pieces of kit. You might have to start on a hammer strength machine and then end on some kind of dumbbell variation. That's a logical way to change things. And then you will know that doing more than just 2 sets on maybe a hammer strength piece is probably silly because you're not going to be able to keep increasing your progression over a period of time because of that limiting factor of training in the shortened range. So that's why it limits you to 2 sets. But 2 sets isn't a locked-in idea, it's a misconception. So people that think that the idea is just to do 2 sets on things, it's just because they're confused and they don't necessarily understand the goal of the volume parameters as a whole, and then also don't understand the limitations of certain pieces of kit. But that's what I'm trying to help, that's what I'm trying to explain. So I am now on the seated hamstring curl, and I'm now on setting 3, which overloads the lengthened portion. So this will now be easier to get short because I train the shortened range at the beginning and I don't have much oomph left there now. So. I absolutely love that machine on setting 3. I love it. It's so heavy at the start and it's really hard to get going, and then it feels like it drops off at the perfect point. Like me and Corin were actually discussing this machine the other day, and that we actually think that this, quite like my opinions on the chest press machine, that even at just all setting 1 actually runs you into a bit of a progression wall with the fact that setting 1 is still really heavy in the short. When I was on gear, I could overcome it because I was so explosive that I could generate so much force at the lengthen that I could then get things short regardless. Now I don't have that explosiveness. I can't do it. So for me, if I was to start on this piece, I would start on setting 5, which is then like how I did on the chest piece, which is then kind of half mid, half lengthened, and then I'd move to setting 3. So that's an idea for you. So for me on this, settings 2 and 4 are again entirely redundant because they have no resistance in the lengthened portion at all. You're just flapping about. Why I like the line ham in the shortened position is because you don't have to necessarily leave the lengthened or the mid portion of the range flapping about with 0 resistance. What it's like is that you can appropriately load that, but then as you get into the shortened range, have some weight there so then it stays hard to lock out there, which makes a lot more sense. I know that's quite complicated, but we'll kind of explain that more as we go. So with this now, that was 4 reps. I'm going to lower the weight for 1 more set. And then that's my hamstrings done. That's 5 sets of leg curl, which is more than enough. Probably so. Just to explain my kind of volume distribution at the moment, I want to do quite a lot of leg curl work just for me specifically, because that is in line with my goals. So bias your volume between quads and hams based on your needs in terms of their strengths and weaknesses. So quite simple is if you've got really great hams, do a little bit more quad volume. If you've got really great quads, do a little bit more ham volume. It's literally as simple as that. Okay, so slightly lower weight now, guys. Just a couple more reps. Guys, after that, I like to do a single leg movement that again exhaust training in the lengthened range just entirely. For a bodybuilding perspective, I'd probably choose a front foot elevated split squat with the rear foot elevated as well. For a knee health perspective, for those of you that are struggling there, I would choose just a front foot elevated with no rear foot elevated, and then just look for as much range of motion over the knee as possible. And then for those that are looking for more glute ham focus, I would do the single leg step up. For me, with my goals at the moment, I want to develop as much power and strength through my glute ham, specifically my glute for this movement, actually. I'm going to choose a step up. That's just, again, very specific to my goals. So pick the movement that is going to be most beneficial for you. I would say the large majority are going to favour the single leg rear elevated split squat. I think that is, when quad hypertrophy is the goal, I think that's a phenomenal exercise. Guys, for me, I'm going to do body weight for these and just crank out the reps, and then because I've just reintroduced these, because I've had a couple of sessions where I was doing more some knee health focused ones, and then I did actually use the split, the heel elevated split squat as well. So I think it's maybe been 6 weeks since I've done this specific version. But the reason why I stopped doing this one was because holding the dumbbells was causing me forearm problems. Because I don't know, for those of you that follow my log, but I ran into some forearm tendonitis issues. So I scrapped the dumbbell variation. So I'm going to start back on this with just body weight, and then over the coming weeks I'll rebuild back up to the weight I was lifting for heavy reps. So last movement for me today, guys, is going to be a lying single leg raise that is hip flexor and then also brings in some abdominal work. So when we focus on the layout of this session as a whole, so let's just kind of recap. And I'm going to put this in a way that how I would advise you to do it for maximum muscle growth. So we're looking at 2 to 3 sets of a leg curl to start with, focusing on training in the shortened range. So if you don't have a machine that already biases the shortened range, you can spend 2 seconds in that contracted position like we did with the cuff laterals in push. If you haven't watched that, watch that push session. And then as those sets go on, you can then just do like a 1 second and then a 0. So those could be your 2 to 3 sets there. Then after that, once your knees are warm, you're going to do a leg compound movement. And again, depending on how things feel, you could do 2 sets on one piece, or even 4 sets on one piece, and then just altering your rep ranges, because those machines have like fairly even resistance in the sense that you're going to be able to work consistently for 4 sets. So what tends to diminish working sets is when things overload in the shortened, because then you just run into a brick wall. I keep using that analogy a lot because it's quite literal in the sense that you then just cannot lock out, whereas on a leg press or a hack squat, you're not going to run into that issue. So you could then do 2 to 4 sets. My preference really would be to be doing 2 different movements, like 1 leg press variation and then 1 squat variation, so hack or pendulum. Or if you are an individual that is able to use the barbell squat to your advantage, then you would use the barbell squat. If you need to alter the biomechanics for that, then you could add a heel wedge. So then after our 4 sets of compound move, we're then going to jump onto a leg extension. If you don't have something where it allows you to adjust the resistance profile, use bands. Use bands and low pin weight. You scroll back through my IG, you can see it. There's a video of tons of bands on a leg extension. And then again, 2 to 4 sets here, depending on how that shortened position feels. If you get your loading positions right, you could do 2 with quite heavy resistance in the lockout, and then bring that resistance off, and then on the 4th set, you have no resistance there at all. So again, this is where we kind of demolish the idea of it only being 2 sets on a movement and us actually adjusting resistance profiles to try to stay on 1 piece of kit. After that, we're going to hop back onto a leg curl that allows us to train in the lengthened range. So this is where you do need a piece of kit that drops off in the shortened range. If you don't have that, you can do a hyperextension and then just spend 1 second in the full stretched position. Okay, so after our lengthened hamstring movement, be it hyperextension or a hamstring curl that drops off, we're then going to do a single leg movement. And again, for this, pick your single leg movement that is going to allow you to target the areas that you need the most focus. So for me right now, because of my personal goals, I'm choosing the single leg box step up, where I'm not really controlling the eccentric, and I'm just focused on powering up with 1 leg, because that is super specific to my needs. If my needs were still, I never did this movement whilst I was trying to bodybuild. It's important for me to put that in, because it's not particularly a great muscle building exercise. It's okay, but when you don't have that eccentric loading, I don't think it's as optimal. And there's a lot of things doing the work. There's a lot of ability to create inertia, to rock yourself forward. But for my goals, it's absolutely perfect. So if you have sport-specific goals, that's your movement. For those of you that are looking to grow muscles, I would pick a different exercise. I would pick something that's either, again, glute focused in the lengthened position, so you could choose a dumbbell RDL and pause in the lengthened position, or something that's hamstring focused, sorry, it's quad focused in the lengthened position. So it could be a heel elevated split squat. And then to finish, we're going to finish off with a hip flexor exercise, where we're then just doing a lying single leg raise. And again, that's going to pull in some of your abdominal muscles as well. That's my ideal setup for a leg day. Now, depending on your stances you take, you might be an individual that is naturally adductor biased, which means then you don't need to add in an adductor isolation work. For those of you that aren't, I then would be hammering the adductor machine. Now for me, there was a large period where I actually started my sessions with this. So I would do adductor, then hamstring curl before my compound, and then there were also periods where I ended with it. If you are an individual that takes a stance that is your power position, that already trains your adductors extremely efficiently, you don't need to add the adductor machine. I can think of various bodybuilders that are super well developed there already. It's not necessary. So again, make that decision based on your structure. And you're going to be able to work this out quite quickly. Look down, look in the mirror and be like, do I have naturally good adductors from the compound movements that I do? If you don't, on the adductor machine. And again, 2 sets there. If you have something that adjusts the resistance profile and that your recovery capabilities are really good, you could extend those sets to potentially even up to 4 based on how good your recovery is at that moment in time. So we have quite a lot of variability on the amount of volume that we can do, and hopefully within this session I've also kind of dispelled the idea of you only needing to do 2 sets on things, and also that they only need to be a load and a back off. Like, those were never things that were set in stone, and they were just misconceptions that brought about just because I had to jump from different pieces of kit. Whereas now that we do have all the stuff with the adjusted resistance profile, I can do my work on one piece, which is a huge advantage. Again, Prime has had tons of plugging, but I'm seeing other companies now jumping on the bandwagon because they understand the importance of it. Like, for me now, if you're a kit manufacturer in 2022 and you're making a new piece of kit and you don't have something that is an adjustable resistance profile, and then for like a chest piece, if it doesn't converge and if it doesn't have handles that are potentially adjustable, you have no idea what you're doing when it comes to making kit, and you should not be making kit. Whereas a lot of this stuff now has that much flexibility, and it's superb. It's gonna build much better physiques. But Prime are way ahead of the curve with it all. So again, I'd look at their stuff, and I'm not. I swear to you guys, I get absolutely no kickbacks whatsoever. I'm not looking for kickbacks. I'm just looking to put out the information to you guys of what's good. And if someone else comes along and makes good kit that's on par, then they're going to get the plug. It's as simple as that. So I'm just putting out the good information for you. So last couple sets for me on the leg raise, and then that's me out. Any questions, please ask. Any questions that kind of I can help you program your leg session specific to you, please ask, but you're going to need to outline your strengths, your weaknesses, your pieces of kit that are available to you, and then I can help give you some ideas. Remember, everything is about you. And remember that the answer for a lot of these questions is try it and see, and then you tell me. You do something for a period of time, and then you give me some feedback, and then we can have a discussion about it, instead of me giving you permission. That's what we're going to ban. That is just, we're getting rid of that idea. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys.